Still the Place with Laura Layton,
Courtney Thorne-Smith,
and Daphne Zuniga, an iHeartRadio podcast.
Welcome back to Still the Place. We have such a fun episode this week. We are meeting with our good friend, Andrew Shue. We're so excited we get to talk to him. Andrew played the lovable, nice guy, Billy Campbell on Melrose Place, and we're going to get to hear all of his stories, and we get to go down memory lane with him. And so, yeah, we're about to invite him in, and we're going to have that conversation soon. Yay!
Yay! Andrew, so good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I have to admit that I've already failed you because I realized that you asked me to watch. I think I've seen the pilot within the last 5 years.
Good.
But
That is good enough.
There
In
won't
fact,
be a test.
It is sort of like a test. We're all having challenges with our memories. So you'll just be in good company, like what you do or don't remember. It's all good.
But what we really want to start with, because we all started here and I'm dying to know, I've already told my story of your audition. What do you remember about your audition?
Yeah.
just you, really.
Oh, okay. That's amazing.
Oh, well, it is an interesting story. But it did end in a room with, I think they were like 20-foot high ceilings in Aaron Spelling's house in his, what I guess was called his office.
It was like a library, right?
Yeah, well, it was wall, all the way around, every wall filled with leather-bound scripts of every episode of every TV show he's ever produced.
Yes.
Wow.
And there were probably 25 people in the room. All the casting people from Fox, people from Spelling, all the producers, Darren Star, everybody from the show.
Wow.
And how I ended up in that room is quite a story. So I have to go back. Well,
We have
To the
time.
day I was
We have
born.
storytelling.
No, you go.
In 1990, I went to Zimbabwe to teach math and play professional soccer over there. And a very odd thing happened. I got a phone call from my sister about a month into the time there in Africa. And I only got phone calls like 4 or 5 times the entire year. When somebody called from America, the phone's like, and it's like, it was back then, it was $5 a minute. It was a big deal. And she got on the phone and she said, Andrew, you're never going to believe what happened. The head of casting at Universal Pictures saw a picture of us at a premiere of Soap Dish, which was a movie that she had been in.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Andrew's sister is Elisabeth Shue.
Yeah, so saw a picture of us at a premiere, and the head of casting at Universal Pictures wanted to know if you are an actor. And so I told them that you are.
As sisters do.
At this point, all I had done was 2 home movies up in Maine when I was about 7 and 10. And so now for the rest of the year while I'm in Zimbabwe, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. I just read Silence of the Lambs, so I was thinking I would be an FBI agent. I was also thinking about maybe broadcast journalism, being a sports commentator. And so the idea of being an actor is just in the way back of my mind. So when I get back from Zimbabwe and I have to figure out what I'm going to do, I applied to journalism school. I only applied to one school, which is probably not so smart, Columbia, which is probably the hardest one to get into. I did not get in. And I started working at ABC News, trying to be, a producer, a sports producer. I was basically just getting people coffee. And then I decided to have a conversation with my sister's acting coach because of that little thing in the back of my head. So a woman named Sylvia Lee, amazing woman who had coached my sister for a long time. She said, well, you know what? You kind of have the same thing that your sister has, which is just the ability to know when you're full of shit. And you seem smart enough.
That's great.
And if you're willing to work at it, I'm sure you could do whatever she's doing. I was like, oh, really? How much do I have to pay? So anyway, I worked at it for a year. I had a little black book back then. We had little black books where you'd write down every audition, and I had 30 auditions for like TV shows and movies and things like that. I got 2 callbacks on those 30 auditions, never got a part. And I had about 120 commercial auditions. I got 0 callbacks on those 120.
Are you exaggerating with 120, or is that a real
No,
number?
no, it was a real number. I
It's
was
in
just
his book, Laura.
little black
Unbelievable.
book.
It's an unbelievable
Yeah, they
number.
were in my black book. So then I decided, you know what? I'm going to give this whole acting thing one more year, because I heard that they cast a lot more out in LA, because you need to be there if you're going to get one of the small parts, and that's the only way you're going to get your start. And so I went out there, and the first month I was there, the Olympics were on. Hope you guys are all watching the Olympics. I've actually just
we
put
are.
I just put the women's all around on pause so I
Yep.
can see what happens.
Oh, good. Good.
And so I get out there. I'm renting a place right off of Hollywood Boulevard that went for $285 a month.
Amazing, right?
And somebody was murdered right outside.
While you lived there,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. And
Oh, boy.
yeah, so that was where I started out. And within a month, I just happened to get a small part on the Wonder Years. And then a month later, I auditioned for Melrose Place. And I had to memorize the long monologue when I first walk up and meet my character meets Allison Parker. And so I memorized that monologue, and I had it nailed. I went in and read with the casting director. I thought I had done really well, and they never ever called me again. That was it. I was like, okay, thank you.
So when you wouldn't get a call back, would you write in your book no, or just like question mark? Do you remember?
No, I just write they missed
Screw
out.
them.
yeah, they're lost.
They're lost.
And so now cut to another month later, I get an audition based on a monologue that I had done back in New York, where I'm gonna have to admit that it was not really acting, because it was basically me making up a story. So they basically said, do these monologues. I was like, oh, there's this monologue. And they're like, well, what was that from? I'm like, well, I'm not really sure but it was just an embellished story, but it was really good. Bob Harbin was the one who he was at Fox. He's the one who really, kind of got me in the flow of getting into spelling. I ended up getting a pilot for spelling called Gulf City, which I was very excited about, because it was basically a Starsky and Hutch show, and I was going to be one of the cops. And we went down, we filmed it. It was a huge deal. I couldn't believe I'd gone from nothing to one little scene on the Wonder Years to getting this pilot. And it turned out that the movie Soap Dish that I had been recognized at by the casting person was produced by Aaron Spelling. So my sister was in the movie, which is about a soap opera with Whoopi Goldberg and Kevin Kline and a
Sally
bunch
Field.
of people. Yeah,
Great movie.
exactly. Good.
Yeah.
You've been reading. No. So anyway, they end up, unbeknownst to me, they end up casting Billy and the whole cast, and then the person that they cast, unfortunately, for I guess a bunch of different reasons, they decided to not move forward at the very last minute. I think they'd just done some testing, and so they had to do a crash course audition for the part of Billy. And because I had just done this pilot, they basically had 30 guys show up at Aaron Spelling's house. And I remember pulling in with my 82 Mazda that I had bought for $1,000 with the $3,000 I got in my grandmother's will. And I pulled into the parking lot, and there was 30 cars like in the semicircle. And after we all went in for multiple auditions, I was there for probably like 3 hours. And I remember walking into that room and seeing Courtney Thorne-Smith, who was and is the most beautiful person, inside and out. And I remember it just wasn't even acting, because I knew the monologue from way back when. I just walked in and I just started spewing this stuff and talking to her, and everybody in the room just disappeared. I was just completely connected with her, and I went in. I was about to read for the third time when they let the last person go, and Aaron Spelling walks out with Peter Chernin, who later became the CEO of all of News Corp and is still obviously an incredibly successful businessman. He was the head of Fox TV, and I saw him talking to Aaron, and he was like, "So what's the deal? What do you want?" He's like, "Oh, I told you I wanted Andrew the whole time." So this whole thing was just going through the process of Aaron, um, picking me to do this. So I get the part, and that was on a Saturday, and I was shooting on Monday.
So when
And
you
the
were
lo-
sitting out there, wait, Andrew, so when you were sitting out there, you start with 30 guys, right? And it was like
Yeah.
10:30 on a Saturday morning, as I remember. So
Yeah.
they were letting guys go, like you can go, like Chorus Line, the movie,
Yeah.
like you can go, you can go. Oh, really? And it was down to, because, originally, and I think you know this, but I told this story before, there was another guy that most of the executives wanted. And Aaron was like, you're right, you're right, you're right. You're 100% right. That's the guy. I just think maybe we should consider Andrew Shue. Of course, you're totally right. And bit by bit, he was right, obviously. Bit by bit, he turned them. It was fascinating to watch. So they're letting guys go, and it was just you and this other guy. I don't remember who it was.
At the end, there's one other guy. Yep.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
then I remember
And they
when I
cast
saw
you
the
that
ball-
day. They came out and told you that day?
No. Aaron walked over to me, and he said, "Well, you got the part, babe."
Babe.
Yeah.
So Aaron.
Yeah.
And I was like, right away. So he called me at my little $285 apartment on Friday and said, "I want you to do me a favor. I want you to come and read at my house. I'm doing these readings, and I just need people to read with."
Aaron
So
called you?
Yeah, literally called me in my house, my little apartment, and said, "Just do me a favor," because he knew and didn't tell me that Gulf City had been canceled.
Oh,
So if he told me Gulf City's canceled and now this is your only, boat home, I would have been a wreck.
Wow.
Instead,
That's
I was
amazing.
in there, completely relaxed. So when he told me I got the part, I was like, "What are you talking about? What about Gulf City?" He's like, "Oh, that got canceled like 4 days ago." And I actually kind of felt sick to my stomach. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was such a great show." And he's like, "Trust me, this is going to be good. This is really, you have no idea. This is a big show." And because of 90210, I'm like, I'd barely even heard of 90210. I was like, what do you mean? This is like a soap opera with 20 people.
wow.
And he's
That's
like,
It's gonna be
incredible.
good for your career.
Aaron was an actor, and there you can see it in that moment because he created a situation where you didn't have anything at stake, and that was your energy in the day. Like everybody's coming in very intense, and you were so lighthearted and as extraordinarily charming as you always are. And it was such a breath of fresh air when you came in the room. And isn't that amazing that he gave you the space to do that? I didn't know that part of the story. That's incredible.
Andrew, were you nervous at any point? I mean, I'm hearing you come in and you were
No,
like
never.
taken by her, and you weren't nervous?
No.
You
I was
drive
literally
up to this mansion in Bel Air and all these people?
No, I mean, I think also just because my sister had managed her career so well and kind of just seen the business for what it was. And I genuinely thought I was on Gulf City. So I just saw this as a business opportunity just to meet people. So I was like, "Oh, I'm meeting Courtney Thorne-Smith and I look at all these other people." I'm like, "Hey," I walked in, I was like, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on? What are you guys doing?" And
Okay.
I was completely
Interesting.
more in kind of almost a political mode, not at all like thinking about my performance and what am I going to do and
Right.
Did that
yeah,
change then when you showed up on the set? Like, what was it
Oh,
like
yeah.
first day on the set? And you're like, "No, this is real. This is actually."
Oh my God.
Oh,
What
what
have I
was
done?
that?
Yeah, and then you probably can see by the performance, it was literally just me trying to pretend to be me, and like being like, "You're okay, just be Andrew. You're gonna be fine." I was not. I was the proverbial rookie who everybody was very sweet to, and Courtney. I just remember everybody being so kind, so professional, and I was just wide-eyed. Obviously, I'd never done this before. I mean, the Gulf City thing was 5 days, and I think I was pretty terrible in that. But
Wow.
it was just so fun and exciting, that whole period. The other crazy thing was that you probably don't remember, maybe you do remember this, but the LA riots because of the Rodney King trial happened right at the beginning of the shooting of Melrose Place, which delayed the shooting for 2 weeks. If the riots hadn't happened, Melrose would have started shooting 2 weeks earlier. The audition for Billy would have happened 2 weeks earlier, and I would not have been available because Gulf City would have absolutely been still there. So
Whoa.
the timing of Gulf City getting canceled, and that it all lined up
Wow,
to be.
I didn't realize, I didn't put that
Yeah.
together. The riots. That was I
Yeah,
remember
it was
being up in the hills and just looking down and seeing just this, the smoke coming up in different areas. It was
time.
such a terrifying time. Wow.
Yeah.
Really.
So
Yeah.
back to the pilot.
Now I want to hear all your stories.
Wow.
No, so do you remember, because we watched the pilot and I had totally forgotten that you started as a dance instructor. Do you remember that scene of you dancing with a mop?
I do. I will say that I got let's say what's the right as the series went on, I was less free with myself to really embrace some of the crazy stuff that they were writing. So I would be like, oh, I'm going to underplay this, I'm going to underplay that. People wouldn't normally do this. People wouldn't normally say this, which wasn't very good. Because I think in the end, really going after it the way I did, clearly when I was up there on the bed dancing and like I was all in.
So charming, so adorable.
Maybe it worked. Maybe it worked. But I was
Totally.
definitely pretty free with all that. But yeah, that was I just said, okay, that's what they want me to do. Get up there and just start dancing.
It completely worked. It was so charming. And when we talked about the pilot on the show, I must have been directed to just be horrible to you. And you were, especially that first scene you auditioned with, you're so charming and you're so ebullient and you're so friendly and I'm so mean to you. And I'm just like, why is she such a horrible, horrible person? But there had to be somewhere to go, I hope, or I was just a horrible, horrible person.
No,
It
you were
totally
scripted.
worked.
You did what you were.
Hope I
You did what was
scripted 'cause
written.
I looked
Do you
like
guys
David.
remember being directed by Howie Deutsch? Like specifically, was he
I don't-
asking you to go bigger, Andrew? And was he asking you to go
No.
colder? Or do you remember any of
No.
that?
I
Yeah.
remember him just being like,
Relaxed.
just relax, just enjoy it, go for it, but it wasn't ever like do more.
Yeah.
I think it just worked again because I was so excited to be there.
Yeah.
And I think the character was so excited. He's just got his first job, or he might, oh my God, he's living with this new beautiful
Yeah.
woman, and it's all happening. So it all worked.
Yeah.
I think that you being the way you were, actually, you looked like you were covering in a way, kind of like you let out little moments, which was perfect. It was like breadcrumbs, just like for episode after episode after episode to get us till where
That was a
everywhere
conscious acting choice, Andrew. It was all very carefully thought out.
She's softening. She's softening.
Well, it's really sweet to watch it because I get to see, first of all, and I was trying to remember, do you remember what episode? Because I remember saying, I will never date a co-star. I'm way too professional. And then I'm thinking like episode 2, I was like, yeah, I'll kiss him. Like where? It was like I think I held on for like a week and a half. Do you remember which episode? Because I was watching
Which episode was?
like episode 4 that we started dating. I was watching like
Oh.
episode 4.
He
and
remembers. I could tell.
Right.
Wait, we dated?
Wait a
Apparently,
minute.
it didn't
In her
mean a lot
mind.
to you. It meant a
Wait a
lot to
minute.
me, Andrew. Yes,
You told
we
me you dated.
I have pictures. I have
That's so
pictures to
funny.
prove it. Pictures to prove it.
Ooh,
I
show
think
us.
I will. I feel guilty about that. That was probably all my fault. I mean, I should have held off for a lot longer.
I feel like I'm in a
think
very
episode-
private,
I
intimate
know,
conversation right here.
episode
Like I
3.
don't belong
No,
here
it's
listening
not-
to
it was
this. You guys
30
should
It
be.
was 30 years ago.
So
where
does the
everybody's
audience.
good.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody's good. But
She's still jealous when we watch scenes of you with guest
I
stars.
was watching you kissing Jensen. I was like, I will take her head right off. But do you remember? It was like episode 2. I don't think we were dating them, but I must have been like my hard heart was already thawing. And then there was one where we had a guest star and I was kissing the guest star. And I remember him saying to you, she has the hots for me. And you and I were already dating. And you were telling me, he thinks you have the hots for him.
Ew.
And that was like episode 4. So I, in my
Wow.
vast professionalism as the old timer in the business, lasted roughly 17 days.
I appreciated
Admirable.
I'm
Appreciate
very
all
impressed with
Yeah.
myself.
Admirable restraint.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't tell. The chemistry was all there. It did look like we were really pushing for something.
I mean, you guys have one of the iconic relationships on television and from that era, and it lasted. You guys, Billy and Allison, were on and off for years, I believe. You guys were, you guys, I think, ended in life, right? But then you kept going. Was that weird? Was that easy?
It was shockingly not weird.
It was that we handled it well. I remember there was a little bit of time where it was tough.
Well, do you remember me having the talk with you? Because the characters were still dating and you and I weren't dating. So we broke up at the beginning of the break. So we had a couple months to sort of adjust. And then we started back and we were still dating. So we'd been broken up for 2 months and then we had to kiss. Do you remember me saying, okay, now we're professionals, no tongue? Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
This is the kind of podcast
this is where I draw the
Andrew.
line. I'm a professional.
We ask everyone this.
Melrose was PG. Come on.
We ask all the boys this. Do you remember when I said no tongue?
I hope we had to talk about that kind of stuff. No,
we didn't.
What I do
we didn't get
You
into
guys
those
weren't
details.
dating. Did your characters date on the show?
Our characters eventually dated on the show too, because everybody's characters
after
dated.
you date? Because we were dating before we were dating on the show. Then we were dating after we were dating on the show after we broke up in real life. But you and I segued into friendship really well. I don't remember
I want to hear
a lot
Andrew's
of tension.
side of it.
Yeah.
What do you feel, Andrew?
But what if he
we're
thinks
just flies
something
on the wall.
different
We're
than
like,
I think?
tell us
I want to
everything.
jump in. What if he has a different opinion?
No pressure, but we're all just waiting for you to.
I think he's actually
Did he
frozen.
he might be
freeze?
frozen. He picked a really
I think
convenient
he
time.
pretended to
I think
freeze
he's-
so he doesn't
I
have
think
to
he's
answer
He is
the
pretending.
such
question.
a good actor when he just sits there and he
That's
doesn't
hilarious.
even move.
He's frozen.
I am so amazed at how he can do that.
Andrew,
I
we
wish-
see you breathing, Andrew.
I
we know you're
wish
faking it.
Everyone at home could see this performance.
Hey, sorry we lost you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I like how you just like popped out right at that moment.
I said very casually, and we were friends after, and then you froze and hung up.
and disappeared.
But that's what we saw.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm still mad at you. That's why I came on today.
What I was gonna say was, that our relationship, we helped carry each other through a very intense time. The show got a lot of attention. I know you had already been kind of fairly well known, but that was we were dealing with a lot of we'll call it Fox celebrity craziness, and I remember just feeling safe knowing we were together guiding each other through it. So
Oh, that's
that
so
was-
sweet. And honestly, like, we do glamorous things, but you lived in a house with how many roommates did you have? 3 or 4?
yeah, 4 roommates. I
4
think.
roommates. So it's like
Any of them
what-
actors or just you?
No.
they were friends from college.
Soccer players.
Some soccer players.
Journalists.
Yeah.
All the things you thought of.
Yeah, so it was very like grounded. And then I bought my first house right up the street from where your rental house was, which
Yeah.
was very sweet. And then what I remember today driving in, do you remember going with me to adopt my first dog as a grown up? To the Basenji, went to Basenji
Was the
Rescue.
dog a
Andrew
grown up or
came with
you're
me.
saying you were a grown up?
I was a grown up. Also, the dog was a
Okay.
grown up.
All right.
Ed. We
Just
adopted
curious.
Ed, and
All right.
Andrew came with me. I should find it. I have
What
a
a
picture
very
of that
grown-up name.
somewhere.
I remember that
I know.
name.
Wasn't that sweet though? So you're a part of that very sweet memory for me.
Yeah, I remember they were so beautiful. And where are Basenjis? Are they
From Africa.
Africa.
And they don't
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't bark.
They don't bark. They like sort of they yodel.
My neighbor has 8. She just had a litter. And every time we drive down the driveway, like 8 of them.
Basenjis?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so rare. That's so
They
interesting.
don't make a sound. It's really just like this.
Oh, that's so rare.
Yours
Wait,
did?
They yodeled. They made a lot of noise.
We just
So
went off on
Laura-
a tangent. Did you get
Laura
that?
didn't have to. Yeah, but Laura didn't have to talk about any of her dating. There was a
You know, it's so funny because we
lot of,
just
you know,
we just
round
had,
robin dating.
we just had Grant on, and I thought about this after. Like, we didn't really talk about that. Like, we're in the same room, and it just wasn't like a
We're talking
conversation
about
that
his fights.
it didn't come up.
He got
And
into
like,
fights.
you know, we all went out to lunch after, which we wish we could go out to lunch with you
Yeah.
if you would only, you know, come to LA to
Next
do this.
time you're in
Next
LA, will you
time.
let us know, please?
We could bring you on Zoom. Like we could have you on a phone and like seated at the table with us.
Yeah.
He's like,
We could.
yeah, I really
We
don't
could
want to
do
do that.
Sounds complicated. But yeah, like the topic just didn't kind of come up, and I didn't know if it was like, oh, it was just so nice to be like so comfortable. Like all of us feel like that cast and that group and that time in our lives led to such like lasting friendships, even if we don't see each other for years or whatever. It's so easy and great. And I'm so grateful for it to be able to just text you like, hey, how are you? Like after years or whatever, like it just feels like such a nice, comfortable thing to feel like we dated in our 20s, Grant and I, and you two dated in your 20s too. But like all these years later, it's just such a fond and friendly and warm group as a whole. I just feel so grateful for that. I think it's really special.
That's so true.
I agree. And I think everybody has given to it in that way and kind of nurtured the relationships. And it's unique. I think all the people were just quality people. Like I said, very professional. So I thought, I think we all.
And a show like that lasts, it really is like, it's like college or something, right? Like it's those years, it's every single day, 5 days a week, long hours, especially we're shooting doubles. We did 22 up to 32 or 34 episodes a year. Like you see each other more than you see others in your life.
Yeah. Do you remember going to Marie Callender's for lunch?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? What did you order? Do you remember your order?
Caesar salad with tuna. That's
Probably
fine.
got a Reuben every time.
I was wondering, were you
nice,
eating carbs
nice.
back then? Because
He eats anything. You've never had Andrew's leg. Like if you were to touch Andrew's leg, it feels like that wooden table. Like his body doesn't make fat.
all right, we'll take
It
your
is
word for it.
crazy.
Getting
So-
older now.
Yeah.
Andrew,
Did you get a fat cell, sweetie? Did you have a fat cell you have to
I-
deal with?
I have one or two.
So sorry. That's so
But
hard for you.
So Andrew, like you were always doing so many other things. Like while we were shooting a television show, and like you said, it was a lot. There was a lot going on, but you were also like developing these other ideas, and you always had something completely different aside from acting that you were doing. And the first thing was Do Something. Was that like sort of the first other thing that you did? I mean, I knew you had already been a soccer player and you were still always playing soccer.
You were
but
starting to do something in our production office. I remember you using the fax machine. Like you were always in there. Do you remember that? With the fax?
I was on that fax machine a lot.
Fax
You know what?
machines.
Sign of the
Again,
times.
I think it kind of kept my sanity. My sister, she just showed me that it was an opportunity to do other things. It was kind of a means to other ends. And I also just felt so fortunate. It just seemed crazy to have the ability to go on talk shows and talk about things. And it also seemed weird to me to be promoting, like the whole idea was to promote yourself so more people would know you so that you could get the next part. And that all just seemed very weird to me. And obviously you had to go on those shows and try and be funny, which Courtney was really good at being funny. But I liked working on these other things and then be able to go talk about them and,
Yeah.
and do something had come out of an experience I had in high school. I lost my older brother who was kind of my idol in life, and he had been an Eagle Scout, and so I had a lot of things that the acting thing happened randomly for me. It was not kind of I didn't have real vision for my life, to be honest, and I lost my brother my senior year in college, so I kind of was in a wayward mode when I went over to Africa, and so when the acting thing happened, I immediately felt this is an opportunity to do something else. Like this is not about you and acting and being famous or any of that stuff. So I think to ground me and to connect back to my brother, starting to do something was just really healthy, and it's still running amazingly well all these years later. And
Did you pass it on to someone else? Sorry to interrupt, but someone else runs it now, I think?
the two of my buddy Mike Sanchez and I, we started together. He was running it. We were always partners in crime, and then we started a business together in 1999, which he's now still running. I'm at the offices right now of that company we started. It's called Cafe Media, and and we did pass on the leadership multiple times and have an incredible CEO do something right now.
And you want to
So
just tell the audience like what that is? What is do
yeah,
something?
yeah. So do something. At the time, there were so many great social entrepreneurs like Wendy Kopp, who had started Teach for America, and Alan Casey, who had started City Year. These were social entrepreneurs who came up with ideas and created their own organizations. And so I had had an experience in high school because I had quit Boy Scouts and felt guilty about it. And that it was this called Student Serving Seniors, which also still runs at my high school. And so that experience, I felt we could figure out how to give that to other young people, so that creating kind of the little leagues for service to end up becoming kind of the Wendy Copps and the Alan Caseys of the world. So we created clubs in schools. We had grants, and then once the internet started, it was a lot through text messaging. And so Do Something is kind of the premier organization for getting young people involved in service and getting them to create their own projects and then growing them and building them, not unlike what I did in high school.
That's
That
fantastic.
connects to millions of kids around the country. And I think now, especially with the state of our country, we need young people more than ever to realize that they have a role to play. And so we give them tools, we give them funding, we give them inspiration. So it's something we will always need in this country, is to inspire and activate young people.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So great you were doing that while we were and learning all the lines on the show and coming and doing our story lines and it's
Yeah.
just,
And it's
Well,
still a
big-
thing now. Like it's a really big deal. You must be so proud of it.
Oh, wow. Well, again, it's been because it's been passed on to great leadership. Uh, Denora, who's the CEO now, is awesome.
mhm.
But I would just, as you said that, learning the lines, I remember because I was also playing soccer in 1996
Wow.
with the Galaxy, and I remember going home and not having time to shower because I was in such a rush to get to the studio that I literally took the hose and just then got in the car, turned the it was like 90 degrees out, and turned the heater on, and was literally like drying my head and learning the lines that I had like sitting up there. Yeah,
It was a
it was
lot.
not exactly how an actor would do that.
Well, you were always a fan of learning the lines on the go. I remember walking on the set with you many times, you going, now what are we doing today? And looking down at your side.
I mean, I'm starting an NGO over here, so and I'm playing soccer with Galaxy, so
Yep. You were much more than an actor.
Well, yeah,
So you left the show in 96?
98.
You stayed till 9. Okay, right. So you
98
stayed.
was 6 years. Yeah, we started in 92.
And then was there a reason you chose to leave? Was it you were starting something else, yet another business, and you were going off to do something else? What was that?
So did you do 1 year after the three of us left? You did year 6?
I did year 6.
Wow,
Yeah.
what was that like? Without us. What was it like without us?
Did you talk about us while we were?
Did you miss us every single day?
What about us?
Back then, there were so many people on the show,
yeah.
and like you said, we were still doing double episodes. You just didn't work that much, so it was pretty easy. And I do remember trying to negotiate where I could do half the episodes, and they were like, no, for season 7. So I was gonna try to do season 7, but I was like, I only do want to do half the episodes. I did think for a minute, I was thinking about like, all right, are you gonna leave acting, or are you really gonna try and make a career out of this? And I was intrigued with going back and living on the East Coast, starting a business, and so I had a decision to make, and so I was kind of straddling both. And I thought, if you're going to keep going on the acting front, you probably want to get off the show before it sinks. And then the longer you're on it, the more you're connected to that character, it's hard to go off and do other things. So I felt like I also knew that year 6, when you've had a 5-year contract, year 6 is the one year where you can make some pretty good money. So I definitely
He's a
stayed.
businessman through and through.
Such a
I mean,
businessman.
clearly.
So did you have kids by then? When did you start having kids?
I did. Nate's birthday, actually. My oldest is today.
Oh, happy birthday, Nate.
Happy birthday, Nate.
Happy birthday, Nate. How old is he?
28 years old.
Wow.
So he was born in 96, and then Aiden was born in 98. So Aiden was born just after we finished the 6th year. And then, so I had just really Nate in that year and a half before the show, before I left the show.
And then did you move back east right after you finished that last season?
Pretty much, like another 5 months later. Yeah.
Andrea, where did you guys grow up? I know you went to Dartmouth, where coincidentally my mom worked for 12 years.
Can I tell my Dartmouth story?
Where did you grow up?
Sure.
In New York?
I grew up in northern New Jersey,
Okay.
in South Orange, New Jersey.
All right, I want to tell my Dartmouth story. So when Andrew and I were dating, he had a reunion of some sort at Dartmouth. And we went back to Dartmouth. It was fun for me because I didn't go to college, so I got to pretend I went to college. And we went to his fraternity, and we walked down into the basement, and the smell, I can't even tell you. And I said, "What is this smell?" And he goes, "Oh, the basement is where people go to throw up."
Yes. It's so gross.
That was your experience at college.
A fraternity basement.
what I said.
Andrew, you
That's
take her to the
verbatim
nicest
what you
places.
said.
Literally the
That
fraternity
is not
basement.
what I said. That is not what I said. I may have said every now and then people
It's a vomitorium.
may accidentally throw up down
From
there.
the smell, every now and then was fairly often. And I'm just saying, maybe a
With a
group
lot
of
of beer.
guys doesn't do a whole lot of cleaning up on a regular basis.
Not
but
in
it
college.
seemed that those who lived there had adjusted to the
Yes.
smell. I had not.
Well, they're frat guys.
They
That's
were
what they do.
Standard.
You were so,
Boys.
but you said it so matter of factly. Oh yeah, that's where people go to throw up. And I know you deny it now, but that's what you said.
There may have been some throwing up down there, but it does get cleaned. It just sometimes it's all the beer, the stale beer.
It's
all
a bunch
sticks.
of
Anybody who-
20-year-old guys.
It was such a
Anybody
nice
who-
thing to show her, though. I think that's so
Yeah.
sweet.
So romantic.
Yeah.
Proud. I mean, that actually, my fraternity is the fraternity that Animal House is based on.
Okay.
Well, now it all makes sense.
Yes.
We have our verdict. Okay, you just answered the question. It is where they all threw up.
But I remember you were appreciated by all kinds of students there.
It started with a backpack at the 1996 Centennial Olympic Games, a backpack that contained a bomb. While the authorities focused on the wrong suspect, a serial bomber planned his next attacks: 2 abortion clinics and a lesbian bar. But this isn't his story. It's a human story, one that I've become entangled with.
I saw, as soon as I turned the corner, basically someone bleeding out.
The victims of these brutal attacks were left to pick up the pieces, forced to explore the gray areas between right and wrong, life and death. Their once ordinary lives, and mine, changed forever.
It kind of gave me a feeling of pending doom.
And all the while, our country found itself facing down a long and ugly reckoning with a growing threat: far-right, homegrown, religious terrorism. Listen to Flashpoint on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In the summer of 2020, in the small mountain town of Idlewild, California, 5 women disappeared in the span of just a few months. Eventually, I found out what happened to the women, all except one, a woman named Lydia Abrams, known as Dia. Her friends and family ran through endless theories. Was she hurt hiking? Did she run away? Had she been kidnapped? I'm Lucy Sheriff. I've been reporting this story for 4 years, and I've uncovered a tangled web of manipulation, estranged families, and greed. Everyone, it seems, has a different version of events. Hear the story on Where's Dia, my new podcast from Pushkin Industries and iHeart Podcasts. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Babe,
Yeah, babe.
do you think they can hear us?
Yeah, those are mics.
Guys, we are back. We are so excited. It is season 2 of your favorite New Girl Rewatch podcast. We have got a new season, we got a new name, and we got a brand new episode every week starting July 2nd.
Yeah, I am so excited for you folks to check out this mess around. When I say it's going to get weird, I mean, it's going to get
Just
weird.
okay, save it for the show.
Okay, that's probably for the best.
We've got some of your favorite people from the New Girl universe. We've got the creator and showrunner, Liz Merriweather. We got the Max Greenfield, Olivia Munn.
We also have some of your least favorites, like Jake Johnson.
Lamorne.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you're listing off your favorites, like, he's still a favorite. He just, Hannah, what's up?
We do have Jake Johnson, though.
Yeah. Listen to The Mess Around on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What are some Melrose memories that you have when you think about that time? What comes to mind?
I remember life just being full. And I think, talking about going to Africa and not having necessarily understanding where I wanted to go and what kind of life I wanted to lead. I just remember that time feeling really alive, which was amazing considering, after losing my brother, I definitely was in a darker place and not believing kind of in the optimism of life, which has to drive everybody's life, is the optimism and the opportunity of what could lie ahead. And again, just being with great people, having my first 2 kids being born, being able to work on all these different projects, to be in LA in this brand new environment. It was idyllic. I think I remember going on the Tonight Show and saying, I feel like I'm on Fantasy Island. Like how this all happened, I don't know, but I just felt very fortunate and grateful.
Mm-hmm. Grant was mentioning that too, that sense of like nostalgia, that time of potential. You said something similar to that energy and that fullness, and that's what I love just about life. Like you never know what corner, what audition, what one little thing you say yes to, and look,
Yeah, you got calls all the time for new, exciting things. It's like, oh, they want to do a Gap ad, or they want to do
the Gap ad. I'd forgotten
we
that.
did L'Oreal.
You're going to do appearances in Australia, and there was just so many different. I met Itzhak Rabin, who at the time was the leader of Israel, probably 5 months before he was assassinated, and his wife was a huge fan of the show, and so
crazy, right?
He was like. Yeah, it was amazing.
Do you remember campaigning for Clinton?
You
dragged poor little me, who really still just wants to be home with her dogs, meditating on her couch. And you dragged me like on a bus. We went campaigning with Clinton. Yeah. And I remember campaigning for Clinton, not with him. He wasn't saying, what I need is Andrew and Courtney on my bus. No, but we were campaigning for him, and we were with Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember somebody walking up. Now, Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum are both hugely tall people. Mm-hmm. And I remember somebody coming up to me and going, I was just talking to my friend. You and Andrew were up there next to Laura and Jeff. And I remember saying, Andrew and Courtney, they are tiny little people. They're the cutest, tiniest little people. I was like, well, I don't know how to take that.
Compared to those two, which are very tall. Yeah.
But do you remember that? I don't know how many times we did it, but it was exciting.
I do remember that, and you were a trooper to do it.
That's a very nice way to say it. Yeah, a trooper kind of means I didn't have my heart in it. I followed you around. I'm like, all right.
I do remember. I'm not hugely tall, but it's true that TV can make you look like you're 6.
Yeah.
6'2". What do you look? You can't tell.
Yeah, let's bring it back to Billy. Just doing Billy, playing Billy, what you liked about him, what do
you remember?
Overall.
Do you remember any like scenes or storylines that stood out? Did you enjoy? Did you not enjoy?
I didn't love the fact that Billy kind of got he kind of got walked on a little bit, which it was in the writing. And in the first season, when the whole kind of love triangle happened with Allison and Amanda, I thought that was better, where I was clearly not large and in charge, but at least I was
being fought over by 2 women.
I mean, I was navigating, some exciting
deep waters. Yeah.
And I thought later they they didn't allow him to thrive the way I would have liked. But I think he was still very human, and he was clearly likable enough.
Super likable. And, we just watched, because we're a little bit ahead on the watching, we watched the bungee jumping episode when you get all the guys bungee jumping. And I was saying to Laura, it felt like when the show sort of came together, like all of a sudden it looked like we were really friends hanging out. And you brought the heart. Like you got everybody together. You really brought that energy and that heart. And that's what Billy did. Like you were the vulnerable heart of the show.
Oh, you're sweet.
That's true. It is sweet.
Yeah.
You were kind of like the everyman, like I know it's not, maybe like the glamorous or the, like you say, large and in charge part, but you are the part that the audience is meant to identify with, right? Like the guy who comes in and then this stuff happens with all these different, more out there characters. But yeah, in that episode specifically, remember when they're all celebrating in the courtyard because you had gotten an article in a paper, and then they throw you in the pool with your clothes on. And then they throw in Michael in the pool because he saved somebody's life in the hospital or something. It was like this tradition.
When we started dancing, and you were talking about in the pilot where you're going, yeah, sure, I'll dance with a broom. And I was watching that episode thinking, we're all dancing, doing like the hustle and then going in the pool. I'm like, that was before we started saying, that is not going to happen.
Everyone's dancing different.
Dancing, getting thrown in the pool. I was like, well, that's an early in the show.
Well, the show evolved. It started out definitely as sort of one tone and one dynamic, and it certainly evolved over the years. And then with doing so many episodes, we all went through so many variations of our characters and so many ups and downs and for better, for worse. And ultimately, everyone ended up dating everyone, and everyone ended up, good, bad, indifferent. At some point, I think the characters were all a little bit of everything because there were too many episodes not to have them travel from one thing to another.
Yeah, I do remember a stretch where Billy was borderline mean and evil, and I remember the writers coming and be like, yeah, we thought it would be
tried
good.
that.
It was wrong. We're going back to where.
Do you remember why? Why was Billy being mean?
I think they were trying to. He was just getting to be a little too plain, and you need some bad stuff to happen, and instead of having it always happening to him, it might have been. It was either with, I can't remember which. It was either Kristen Davis or Brooke Langton. It was something in there.
Down the line.
Doing something. It was a little bit later where they were like, we got to spice Billy up.
We're gonna get there because we get to rewatch all of the episodes, and we're reminded of all this stuff that happens. We'll eventually get there. Do you remember
having your shirt off in every other scene? Let's just get to it, guys.
We remember that, especially early on, because that's how far we are into the podcast. You had your shirt off quite a bit.
You and
we're not, complaining. We're just noticing that.
Do you remember that
was a thing?
I do remember it was quite chilly there in the. No, I remember going on what at the time was Regis and Kathy Lee, and he said, I'm going to be loaning you some of my shirts.
Okay, so you had it off a lot.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, it wasn't your idea. We realized that wasn't Andrew going, hey, I think I should do this. It was in the script, just to be clear. Like, when these guys are shirtless, it's because it was written.
No, I remember Grant doing, look at this, shirt off. Of course I walk out, like it was just a thing. Like, would you just read your sides, read the script and go, of course the shirt's off.
Stepping out of the apartment.
Yeah.
I think if we were, I don't know, you're shooting something and you're really not really thinking like, oh, there's millions of people who are watching this thing every week. You're just out there on the stage. Okay, what do you want us to do? But then when you're actually watching the show or later, you're kind of like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like people must be like, this is not serious. People are just prancing around with no clothes on.
Yeah, it got less and less. Like in the beginning, they would have you guys for no apparent reason. Like you'd be walking out of the apartment without your shirt on. And then over time, you could see that you guys started saying, we need to put the kibosh on this. And it made sense. Like if you were in bed or getting out of the shower, then they would do it. But in the beginning, Like the first episode, there were like 10 shirtless scenes.
Maybe 14.
Maybe we counted. That was one of our things we counted.
So many.
Oh, really?
Do you remember though, Andrew? What is your craziest storyline? Do you remember the thing you had to do and you're like, oh, I can't believe I have to do that?
See, I didn't get to do anything that.
Can we help him?
And I have to say, like, Billy and Sydney didn't have a whole lot together, because I think maybe if that had happened, you would have ended up crazier. You kind of didn't. You steered clear.
I agree.
Billy steered clear of Sydney, and so you didn't end up in that realm.
They could have done a Breaking Bad thing where maybe I got cancer, and all of a sudden, in order to save somebody, I had to do some crazy stuff.
There are some good ideas that are still worth exploring. I mean,
But who did Billy date? So Billy dated Allison. Billy dated Amanda. Who else within
Remember
the
he was
core
interested
group
in
did
Joe.
Billy date?
Yeah. Who
was
did
he
date?
interested in Joe?
Yeah, Amanda lost the baby. There's
That's
right.
Yeah.
You were there, and I felt bad because you and I, it was tough. That was a very tough time. What else? I was with, like I said, I married. What was Kristen Davis's?
Brooke.
Oh my! Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah,
pulled
Brooke.
that
And
right
then
out
Brooke-
of you
and then
nowhere.
Brooke Langton's character was Sam.
Sam.
So I almost married her.
But these are
And these
people
were in
they
the
sort
later
of
years,
brought
yep.
in. So when they bring in people, I meant of like the core group, because I think Amanda dated everyone in the building except Doug, right?
She
Except
did not
Matt.
date
I
Matt.
really didn't.
Matt.
That's correct.
I did not get it. I really only had Allison and Amanda of the core
Yeah,
core
they
group.
brought people in for Allison too. I think Allison did it the later time date Jake for a minute, but they really brought people in. Mm-hmm. They outsourced
For Joe too.
people
They
for us
brought
to
in.
date.
They always brought in some evil guy for me, and because they knew that Joe would be attracted to him, and they could create some drama, some real jerk. Handsome.
You guys all the women were the stars of the show. It really was centered around you guys. We were props in and around the women.
Really? Did it feel that way? I didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They had all the best storylines.
I don't know.
and,
I mean,
Yeah, I think so. He's right.
I
the
think
women were watching because of you guys, and
That's
then
true.
men were watching because of you guys as well.
And then women were watching because you
I don't know.
guys,
We
too.
do. Yeah, we
For
hear
sure.
it on the other side
Yeah,
too. The women
trust
were
me.
watching.
You
for
still
the guys,
recognized for Billy? Do people say this to you on the streets of New
You
York?
look exactly the same, Andrew. It's
Minus
ridiculous.
the facial hair.
It is
Totally.
ridiculous.
My gray beard. Every now and then somebody will come up to me and they will say, "Did we go to high school together?"
Oh
And
yeah.
how do you handle that?
I said, "No, I'm not sure." No,
Yeah.
I'd say I just tell them I was on a TV show, and they're always like,
Do they go? Nope, that's not it.
No, I never watched that. Sorry.
I don't
What
watch
else?
TV. Don't you love it when people say, I don't watch TV? It's
Yeah.
like, look, I know I don't know you.
Okay.
people are very. It's always so nice when people come up and say, that was such a huge part of my 20s,"
Yeah.
or well,
Yeah, they tell you about their place that looked like our
Yeah.
apartment building.
Yeah,
Where they-
exactly.
Yeah.
or where they had their parties. The Melrose parties were a real thing.
It was a really meaningful part of people's lives at that time in their 20s. We all sort of remember where we were, who we were with, and that's just special and different. And I feel like that's what's coming back around for us. Doing this podcast, we're hearing so many stories about remembering that time in their lives and what an impactful time it was. And it's so fun to sort of relive the nostalgia of it. Do you have any interest at all? I know you're doing lots of other things. You've got Cafe Media. Do you have any interest at all in acting again?
Not really. I think it's something you never say never. I have a movie project I want to do at some point. There's no timeline for it because it's a very long story, but I got very deeply involved in the Lindbergh kidnapping, where I got to know the widow of the man who was convicted and executed for that. And it's a fascinating story and love story. So I don't think I would act in it, but that's probably will be my last kind of big entertainment project. At some point, I'll I'll get geared up for that.
Are you
Yeah, no,
writing it?
I think it's a best picture type, so I won't be writing it. It's
I love we love the Billy typing
Oh, yeah.
and writing his script, his best American script with finger by
With
finger.
his-
Yep,
with
just
that old kind of
Is that
fingers.
how you really type with
hunt
the
and peck.
hunt and peck?
Yep.
All right, I did not do so well in my typing class in high school. I've gotten better, but not much.
What did
No,
Billy
I-
do for work at the end? I was trying to remember because he was a dance instructor, then always a writer, then a cabbie. Do you remember
Do you remember being a
where
cab
your
driver?
career ended
President.
up?
I was a vice president at D&D advertising.
You went from
Are
being
you
a cab
serious?
driver to
Yes.
the vice president
You
of
went
Are
to
D&D.
you
marketing.
serious? I can't even wait. I have to watch ahead. I don't.
We're not there yet.
Were you my boss?
You're still a cab driver where we are right now.
Did
only
you-
my own part.
Were you at
Were
D&D
you really-
at all? Were you even there?
I think
That doesn't
think I
even sound
leapfrogged you.
familiar
I mean,
to me.
You had a big job there, and I think by the end it was Billy
Is
was running
that
the-
why you dated Allison in season 1? It's all coming. Is that why you dated me to get to Allison to get to D&D?
I'm so now wait, this is weird and I'm a little
God, it's
confused.
all coming together for me.
This is why I left
Wow.
acting, was because of my success at D&D. I decided to go into business. I really internalized my success on the
You
show.
used me. Wow.
Well,
Amazing.
yes.
Well, it all seems to have worked out, but I do have to ask you, like, hypothetically, this is just a complete hypothetical, but if there were an occasion for like a Melrose Place type of like reboot, just as
She said it.
hypothetical.
She said the
I'm
R
just
word.
saying, if there
Reboot.
were such a thing, would you consider participating? Would you be interested? I'm just a hypothetical.
If it was one of those movies like Get Out, maybe, where it was-
So yes, is
Yes.
the answer. Is that what we're hearing? Then hypothetical world.
I would never say no
to us.
to you, but it would have to be done really well.
Yeah.
Well, so hypothetically, that would be really fun, wouldn't it? I mean,
Hypothetically,
just for the excuse to all be together and
Yeah.
it's just, wouldn't that be fun?
It's a great idea. Want to know what you're doing now and if you are happy and what is the project and what's the company that you're running now?
I'm doing very well. I am very happy. My kids are all great, and I'm working on a project. So beyond Cafe Media, I have a project that's very exciting that I think has the potential to be the basis for bringing our country together. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion around how our political leaders may or may not bring us together, which I think all of us see that as almost impossible at this point. So what we've been working on is the idea of creating citizen assemblies where citizens come together from all different backgrounds, political persuasions, and work to create model legislation. So it's essentially creating the structured process of articulating the people's will, which has never been done before. Traditionally, we can just vote, and then our elected leaders will go and hopefully act on our will. They'll be like, well, how do they really know exactly what we think? Oh, based on phone polls. So we know that the country is so polarized that the citizens have to get involved, but it has to be done in an organized, structured way. And we've just tested this in just literally in the last month in New Hampshire. Spent a year-long process of bringing citizens together so that they would be heard, and then eventually having a representative body meet for 3 days in Manchester, and they came up with 4 very specific recommendations. The Secretary of State was there. All the elected leaders were taking it very seriously, and at the end, I think 97% of them agreed to endorse what they had put forward. So the unanimity was amazing, and then the emotion in the room was incredible because they all realized this country is and the success of our country is up to us. That it can't be up to the elected leaders. So I'm all in on this, and have been working on it for about the last 4 years. So this is it's something that I get very
What's it
passionate
called, Andrew? Does it have a name?
So the organization's called The People, and the process that we're working on, we're still in the process of branding the citizen assembly process. We piloted also a project in Kentucky called Meeting of America. So that would be the kind of the initial call to people to come in and meet each other.
Is it like a town hall? Am I imagining it like in a?
It is a town hall that starts with kind of a very involved process to get to the ultimate town hall, but it has to be a representative body. It can't just be, well, who showed up? Well, it was older people, and it's been done overseas. The citizen assemblies have been done overseas, but in those cases, it was always at the request of the elected leaders, where they were trying to solve issues like abortion in Ireland, or end of life treatment in France. It's been used for budgeting here in America in certain cities, where they bring citizens in to help solve sticky issues. And I think we have too many existential crises building where nothing has been done. And so
it's fantastic to engage and to awaken the public, us, because I think with everything that's going on, in America, it just feels like for a common reaction is to shut down. And so you're creating, it sounds like, outlets and a way to stay alive and engaged and take part.
Yeah, the anger that's out there is real, whether it's on the right or the left. It's people basically feeling they aren't being heard.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's massive wealth gap that exists, and there's a certain part of America that's doing really well, and there's probably 80 to 90% who feel like they've been running in place for a long time. So there's a reason why there's so much energy, sometimes negative energy on both sides. So we need an ultimate arbitration, really, and the American people are the only ones that can do it. So we have to show that we can do it at scale. Now we just need to prove that we can do it at scale, and show that it's credible, so that it buys into it.
And do you have a website that people can come to, or is that all in beta, or is it?
Yeah, we're not kind of ready for prime time national. But you can go to thepeople.org. It's still kind of a small organization that's been doing all of these pilots.
That's great.
Worked with the Listen First project, which has been doing a lot of the bridging work. It's really the combination of three different movements that have been building over the last 10 years. There's been a kind of a bridging movement, which is all getting people just to have conversations. And then there's a deliberative democracy movement, which has been getting people to actually, come up with ideas and work through policy recommendations. And then there's the political reform movement, which is about changing specific rules, like ending gerrymandering and changing the way we do primaries and campaign finance. So it's the combination of those three things. We have to, we're a sport that doesn't score any runs anymore. If you had that, which in some sports is getting like that, it just gets so competitive and they get so good that nobody scores, you would change the rules. You have to change the rules. And this is a once every 100 years, we have to change, we have to improve our system. It doesn't deliver anymore. You just have performative politics.
Yes.
It's all performative. And it's not really getting us anywhere.
That's amazing, Andrew.
Sorry to take on.
No.
Fantastic.
Andrew, I'm so grateful that your vision is bringing people together and hope and unity. That's so rare and extraordinary in these days, and that you have the energy and drive to put behind it. I mean, I remember when you were doing Do Something, and now this. Not to put you on the spot, have you ever thought of running for office? I want you in charge of everything.
I do get asked that. Right now, I think it's better to do what we're doing and kind of figure out the right way eventually to bring in elected leaders into this and to support this. But I think we have to prove that, again, kind of as the citizens who are outside of the political arena. I think as soon as it becomes political in that sense, then right away it's like, oh, which party are you trying to benefit? And that's really not what this is about. This is absolutely about really articulating what the vast majority of Americans want. There's so many common sense solutions on every issue, from immigration to guns, that you could get 70% buy-in on. So it's really about creating a 70% agenda that the American people put forward, not a party. As soon as the party puts forward, it's done. You're into a death match. So you got to stay above the party game.
Yep.
This is the American people saying, you know what, we're now going to be the adults in the room, and we are going to create the agenda that the American people want, and then we're going to have to fight for it. Unfortunately, even if we put it forward, the parties are still going to be like, oh, this helps you or helps me. Like, I'm never, they're not going to go for it. Some of them will support it, but they'll be in like very purple states where they have to support the thing in the middle.
Wow. Amazing, Andrew. Thank you for sharing that. Really extraordinary. I'm so excited.
Billy
you're
has
doing
grown
this.
up and he's doing it now with the world, with the whole country.
Right.
Well, we're just so happy that, you've been doing so many interesting things with your life, and that you can come on our goofy little podcast on Still the Place and share it with us. It's like so great to hear all that you're doing, and just seeing
great
your
to
face
see you.
and, yeah.
I give you guys a lot of credit for doing this, and I know that Courtney, I guess one day was like, we should do a podcast about the show.
She called us and said, my friend woke up and said, I had a dream you were doing a podcast from Melrose. And we're like, let's get that done right away.
Not everybody, some people talk about things, not everybody just goes out and does it. So I commend you guys.
You do on a far larger scale. And I'm so grateful you're in the world.
Andrew.
So good to see you, sweetheart.
Oh, and Doug is so bummed that he couldn't be here in person and say hi to you and see you too. So he's jealous.
Have a reason.
He says hi for sure.
Doug's awesome. He's one of my favorites.
And is there anything else that you may have wanted to say while you're here, and anything
to
you
Melrose
want to say
Place
to
fans.
Melrose Place fans? Anything you wanted to mention that we haven't remembered to ask you about?
Well, I want to thank our super fan, Jerry Seinfeld.
Exactly. Yeah. That
He really-
reference.
He put us on the map.
Yep.
Wasn't for Jerry.
That was.
Or maybe it's Larry David. I don't know. Maybe it's been Larry David who decided to do that.
It's really fun that our show had all those mentions from all those shows that we looked up to so much, and then they were talking about us, and it was so flattering. It's amazing.
Wow. And I will say a special thank you to Aaron, obviously, who he's up there, but he pulled the rookie off the bench and stuck him in there.
Yay.
He did. He knew you had something.
Yeah.
Did.
So glad
And
he
we're
did.
so grateful. We're all so grateful.
Well, it's been amazing to see you. I hope that we can have you back, and we would love to see you again.
All right, guys. Love you guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
You seem
good to
great,
see you,
and it's great
sweetie.
to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Bye. Thanks
Love
for
you.
coming.
Bye.
Love you.
Oh my gosh,
Wow.
that
That
was
was so great.
so amazing. And then
So
we
fun.
have
He's fantastic.
We've gotten to visit with Grant and now Andrew, and we have so many more fun guests coming up. But like next week, we're back to our recaps, right? We're on to episode 3, Lost and Found. And that's our next episode. We got to get back in recap mode
Excellent.
here on Still the Place. But that was a super fun way to spend
That
the
was
day.
amazing. He's such a good guy, such an admirable man, too.
Yep.